If you've ever felt a love so intense it burned through every rule you set for yourself, then this story will grip your heart and never let go. Before you dive in, hit the subscribe button so you never miss another breathtaking, pulse-racing love story like this one. Aahil never believed in fate until the night Zara walked into the dimly lit rooftop restaurant where he sat alone, staring at the city lights as if searching for something he had lost years ago. She appeared like a warm flame in cold air, her crimson scarf blowing behind her as the soft winter wind wrapped around her hair. He looked up only by accident, but the moment their eyes met, something inside him shifted, something wild, something aching, something he had suppressed for far too long. Zara wasn't supposed to sit near him, she wasn't supposed to smile at him, she wasn't supposed to ask why he looked like he was waiting for someone who would never arrive. But she did all of those things, effortlessly, as if she had known him long before this night. There was a spark in her voice, a playful boldness in the way she leaned forward, as though she wanted to decode him piece by piece. He tried to be composed, tried to steady himself, but the heat of her presence made him restless in a way he hadn't felt in years. It wasn't the kind of heat that burned, it was the kind that pulled him closer, drawing him into something he didn't yet understand. When she laughed at one of his dry jokes, something inside him melted, and suddenly the cold, distant man he had molded himself into felt like a stranger in his own skin. They talked for hours under the open sky, and every minute chipped away at the wall he'd built around his heart. Eventually the manager dimmed the lights, signaling closing time, yet neither of them moved. The city was hushed around them, the sky glowing faintly with faraway stars, and in that suspended moment, Aahil felt as though he'd stepped out of his life and into a softer version of the world. Zara stood first and extended her hand toward him, not casually, not shyly, but with a confident gentleness that made his breath hitch. When he took her hand, the spark he had felt earlier surged into a warmth that traveled all the way up his arm. She didn't let go. Instead she began walking, pulling him with her toward the quiet corner of the rooftop where the wind felt warmer, as if even nature was rooting for this sudden, impossible connection. She stopped by the railing and turned to him, her face illuminated by the last golden trace of the restaurant lights. "Do you always look at the world as if it's slipping away from you?" she asked softly, and he found himself telling her things he had never told anyone, how he lost trust in love, how he always walked away before anyone could leave him first, how he never allowed himself to feel anything too deeply. Zara didn't interrupt, she didn't judge. She simply listened, her eyes warm, her posture calm, and when he finished, she whispered, "Maybe you're finally ready to stop running." Her words ignited something powerful inside him, not desire alone, not attraction alone, but a longing to be seen, really seen, by someone who wasn't afraid of his shadows. Zara stepped closer, close enough that he could feel her breath mixing with his, close enough that the space between them felt too small for the emotion swirling inside him. But instead of rushing the moment, she lifted her hand and gently touched his jaw, her fingers tracing the edge of the man he pretended to be. "You don't have to be guarded with me," she murmured, and the softness in her touch made the weight on his chest loosen. Aahil placed his hand over hers, holding it there as if anchoring himself. The warmth between them grew, not wild or frantic, but slow and deep, like a fire that didn't need oxygen to burn, only presence. They stood like that for a long time, speaking without words, their breaths blending into the cold night air. Eventually Zara intertwined her fingers with his and rested her forehead against his. The closeness felt like a confession, a surrender, a promise wrapped in silence. And in that stillness, Aahil realized that every heartbreak had led him to this moment, this warmth, this pull, this undeniable connection. When Zara finally pulled back, she didn't step far. She looked up at him, her eyes glowing with a mix of courage and vulnerability. "Let's not overthink this," she said with a bold smile. "Let's just feel it." And for the first time in a long time, Aahil didn't resist. He didn't analyze. He didn't run. They left the rooftop and walked down the quiet streets, hand in hand, as though they had always walked this way. Every step deepened the spark between them, every glance, every brush of fingers, every shared laugh. By the time they reached the street corner where they had to part ways, the intensity between them had settled into something warm and steady, something that promised to return at the same strength tomorrow. Zara stood on her side of the road and called out to him with a playful smirk, "Don't disappear on me." And Aahil, feeling his heart alive for the first time in years, answered with a quiet certainty, "I won't." As she waved and walked away, he watched her until she disappeared into the night, the echo of her presence lingering like a flame that refused to dim. And he knew, deep, undeniable, irreversible, that this was the beginning of something powerful, something transformative, something that would pull him into a version of himself he had long forgotten how to be. If this story stirred something inside you, if it made your heart race, your breath slow, or your imagination spark, then don't stop here. Right finger like, comment, and share for more powerful, emotional, and unforgettable love stories. Right finger subscribe now and become part of a community that lives for stories that burn slow, burn strong, and stay with you.